There is an animal that has walked away from its own kind, specifically, walked away from a dead member of its own kind, and then returned days later to stand over the bones, not because it was hungry, not because it was lost, for a reason that even after decades of study, researchers cannot fully explain. Elephants hold what appear to be funerals. They gather at the bodies of their dead. They touch the remains. They go silent. And sometimes, months or even years later, they come back. The question that should stop you cold is not whether they do this. The question is why, and what it means that we still don't know. Most people think of elephants as gentle giants, big, slow, herbivorous, memorable for their size and their trunks, maybe their tusks, symbols of wisdom in some cultures, of good luck in others. What people do not think about is that elephants are one of the only animals on Earth known to respond to death the way humans do, with something that looks disturbingly like grief. Science has struggled for decades to find a clean, mechanical explanation for this behavior. It has not found one. What it has found instead is a pattern of behavior so consistent, so specific, and so emotionally structured that dismissing it requires more work than accepting it. Elephants can identify the bones of a dead elephant from a distance, and they respond differently to those bones than to the bones of any other animal. This is not a general curiosity about objects on the ground. Researchers at the University of Sussex presented wild elephants with 3 objects: a piece of ivory, a piece of wood, and a piece of ivory from a different species. The elephants consistently showed the most interest in the elephant ivory. They approached it more. They spent more time touching it. They investigated it with the tips of their trunks, which are dense with olfactory receptors, some of the most sensitive biological sensors in the animal kingdom. They were identifying their own kind, through bone, through time, through death. What happens at an actual elephant death site is more structured than most people realize, and it has been documented enough times now to constitute a recognizable behavioral sequence. When an elephant dies, the herd does not simply move on. Other elephants approach the body. They use their trunks to touch the face, the mouth, the tusks. They sometimes try to lift the body. They vocalize, low rumbles that travel through the ground as infrasound, felt rather than heard by human observers nearby. Then they go quiet in a way that is different from ordinary silence. It is the silence of a group that has stopped doing everything else. Researchers describe it as a kind of vigil. The herd may stay for hours. They may cover the body with dirt and branches. One researcher working in Amboseli National Park in Kenya documented a case in which a mother carried her dead calf for days, refusing to put it down, before finally joining the vigil behavior of the larger group and moving on. The family that mourns hardest is always the one that lost the most. This is not metaphor. It is documented fact. Cynthia Moss, who has spent more than 50 years studying elephants in Amboseli, has recorded that elephants who lose a family member to poaching show prolonged behavioral changes that look clinically identical to symptoms of post-traumatic stress in humans. Increased aggression, disrupted sleep patterns, detectable because elephants rest in specific postures, and these patterns break down. Social withdrawal, decreased reproduction rates, herds that lost matriarchs, the oldest female who leads the group and carries its collective memory, showed the most severe disruption. In some cases, these behavioral changes lasted years. In others, they never fully resolved. The family does not recover cleanly from loss. It carries the loss forward in its behavior, which means the dead continue to shape the living long after the death itself. Elephants have been observed returning to death sites, sometimes years after the original death, and this is where the behavior stops being easily explainable and starts being genuinely strange A herd moving through familiar territory will sometimes stop at a location where another elephant died, even if there is no visible marker left, no bones, no smell that a human could detect. Something is retained, possibly in the collective memory of older elephants who were present at the original death, possibly in olfactory traces so faint they register only on equipment more sensitive than anything we currently have. When they stop, the behavior mirrors the original vigil. They slow. They spread out around the site. They become quiet. They touch the ground with their trunks. They are not foraging. They are not resting. They are doing something that has no survival function anyone has been able to conclusively name. They are, by every behavioral measure, remembering. The most documented case of an elephant funeral involving a specific individual is the death of Eleanor, a matriarch in Amboseli, observed by researcher Karen McComb in 2003. Eleanor collapsed from illness. Grace, a matriarch from a different family group, not Eleanor's own herd, approached her, used her tusk to try to lift Eleanor back to her feet, and stayed with her for an hour after she died. Over the following days, 5 different family groups visited Eleanor's body. Members of all 5 groups touched her. Members of her own family returned multiple times. Her own daughter, Enid, stood over her body for a full day and night, becoming agitated whenever predators approached. None of these animals were eating. None were resting. The return trips had no survival value. What they had was specificity. Directed, sustained attention paid to one particular dead individual by animals who knew her over a period of days across multiple family groups. That is not instinct in any simple sense. That is something closer to a social obligation. Here's the part that changes everything. The elephant's brain contains a structure called the hippocampus, which governs memory, spatial navigation, and emotional processing. The elephant's hippocampus is proportionally enormous, and it is dense with a type of neuron called spindle neurons, also called von Economo neurons. For most of the history of neuroscience, von Economo neurons were considered exclusive to humans and great apes. They were believed to be the biological architecture of self-awareness, empathy, and social cognition at the highest level. Then researchers found them in elephants, then in cetaceans, whales, and dolphins. The presence of von Economo neurons in elephants means the biological hardware for self-aware grief is structurally present. The elephant is not performing grief-like behavior on top of a simple brain. The elephant has, in the relevant parts of its brain, the same class of neural architecture that allows a human to know that they are experiencing loss, and to remember it, and to carry it. What this means, retraced from the beginning, is this. When an elephant stands over the bones of its dead and goes still, it is not being confused. It is not misidentifying a rock. It is not acting on a simple scent reflex. It is an animal with a brain capable of self-awareness, carrying a specific memory of a specific individual, experiencing something in the presence of that individual's remains. When it comes back years later, it is remembering. When a mother carries her dead calf for days, the behavior is not malfunction. It is the expression of an attachment so neurologically deep that it does not simply switch off at the moment of death. The vigil, the return, the silence, the touching of bones, these are not approximations of grief. They are grief, running on hardware that is, in the parts that matter most, nearly identical to ours. We built rituals around death because we cannot forget the people we lose. It turns out, we are not the only ones who cannot forget.